Welcome to Focus on Faculty. I'm your host, Xavier Hershevitz, and on today's show, we're sitting down with Professor of Anthropology, Dorothy Nelson. And later, we'll head over to Hannah Hall to talk to Professor of Physics, Brad Roth. Stay here, because we've got so much cool stuff coming up. Welcome back to Focus on Faculty. We've made our way to Hannah Hall, and we're talking to Professor of Physics, Brad Roth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited. We're going to talk a little bit later because you celebrated a big anniversary here at OU. But let's start with really who you are and where you're from.
Well, again, I'm Brad Roth. I'm from right here in the Rochester Hills area. My wife and I live just a few minutes from campus.
So that makes your commute a little easier?
Very, very much easier, yes.
You haven't always lived in this area. Where did you get your degrees from and kind of come from before OU?
I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Kansas, a bachelor's in physics in Lawrence, Kansas. And then I went to Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and got my PhD in physics from there.
What made you choose those schools?
Well, I was living in Kansas in late high school, and my parents had gone to the University of Kansas, so that's how I chose that. For Vanderbilt University, there was a professor there, Dr. John Wixwow, who was doing a lot of research on the electrical properties of nerves, which I was very interested in, so I went specifically to work with him.
So did you always grow up in Kansas before moving to the Vanderbilt area?
I've lived all over. I was born in Clinton, Iowa. I grew up in Morrison, Illinois, a small town of about 4,000 people, very near the Mississippi River. But then we moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Ashland, Ohio, and then finally ended up in Kansas my senior year of high school.
So with all that moving around, when someone asks where you grew up or where you're from, what do you say?
I usually say I'm from Morrison, even though I moved from there when I was 12 years old, because that's where I really spent my really young formative years.
So you studied physics at the University of Kansas. Was that always what you dreamed of doing?
Well, I was interested in physics in high school, and I thought I'd give it a try. It wasn't a real long-term plan. I went and decided I'd try to major in physics. One thing led to another. Here I am.
After you started majoring in physics and doing the courses, did you know that you wanted to be a professor, or were you kind of unsure?
Well, I knew I wanted to do research and as well as teaching, so that naturally led to becoming a professor.
Yeah, so teaching high school physics was never a thought for you?
That was not really something that I was on my plans.
Where was your first teaching job at after the Vanderbilt University?
I spent several years at the National Institutes of Health, and that was strictly research. NIH is the biggest federally funded agency, and they have an intramural program in Bethesda, Maryland. And then after 7 years there, I went back to Vanderbilt University on the faculty. It was a non-tenure track faculty position, and I taught. That's where I did my first teaching.
So you got to really do the research aspect of things first before you delved into the teaching.
Yes, the 7 years at NIH was strictly research.
Is it the marriage between the two that really makes you like being at the university?
Yeah, you couldn't do the research at, say, community college or high school. You really have to be at a research university to be able to engage in both.
Is there one that you kind of love more than the other?
Well, not really. I wanted to teach all along, and I was delighted to get back into it, but I wouldn't want to have either strictly teaching or strictly research.
So you're teaching at Vanderbilt. How did you end up here at OU?
Well, Oakland University has a medical physics PhD program, and I wanted to stay in the physics department because I view myself as a physicist, but I wanted to do research in the applications of physics to medicine and biology. So that made Oakland a really perfect match, and when the opportunity became available here, I seized it.
And so you've been at OU how long now?
Just over 20 years, yes.
And so that's a really big accomplishment, right?
Well, it's been a fun time, and it's you get a lot done, but I've enjoyed every minute of it.
And I'm sure just being here at OU for 20 years, you've really seen OU kind of take off.
Yeah, it's changed a lot since we first arrived, and it's grown tremendously.
Is parking easier to find now or then?
Parking's always been hard to find. But I'm a morning person, so I get in when it's not too bad.
Yeah, so you don't ever have a problem finding a
Not much,
spot.
unless I have to go out for lunch or something off campus.
Sometimes it's easier just to kind of walk across the street.
Yeah.
So you've been at OU for 20 years. What are some different classes you've taught while you've been here?
Two of the classes are undergraduate classes, biological physics and medical physics. And these classes are based on my book, Intermediate Physics for Medicine and Biology. It's been a book that I was co-author on, and it's really been a labor of love. But I also have taught, I'm currently teaching the graduate level class in bioelectricity, and I've also taught the large introductory physics classes that the department often teaches.
What one is your favorite to teach?
My favorite class to teach was when I taught in the Honors College, and I taught a class based on the book, The Making of the Atomic Bomb. And it's really a half nuclear physics and half a history of the Manhattan Project. And I just love the Honors College, and you get some great students in there.
Because with the Honors College, professors really get to teach kind of very niche, very interesting topics, right?
It's interesting topics. It's great students, but they're not real strong in your particular field. So it's not going to be teaching high-level physics, but you're going to have really outstanding students who will enjoy to teach.
You kind of get to delve in really specific topics, which is cool. When you're not teaching at OU, what are some other things you do here?
Well, I do research, and I also have several administrative positions. I'm the coordinator of our medical physics PhD program, so the graduate program. I am also the director of what's called the Center for Biomedical Research. We try to support faculty and students who are doing biomedical research with resources, with promoting some of the accomplishments they have. So that's another one of my main activities.
Is it more rewarding when you get to see your colleagues really excel in research, or when you see students?
Well, it's both, but the students growing and excelling is particularly special because you expect your colleagues to move the research forward. But to see the students grow into it, especially the undergraduates, is just fascinating, and it's a joy to watch that.
Yeah. What has been one of the most interesting projects you've been able to oversee?
Well, as far as my research, I have worked for a long time on the electrical properties of the heart. And especially things like pacemakers and defibrillators, you know, in the movies where the person goes into fibrillation and they shout clear and they give the big shock. Well, I try to understand what's happening at the very basic level. I don't build these devices, I don't test them in the hospital, but I do mathematical and numerical modeling to try to understand how they work. That's, I think, been my most successful research.
From your research, are there things that maybe have changed out in the field from that, or?
Well, I think our understanding of how pacemakers and defibrillators work has changed. There has been no gigantic breakthrough that's made me millions of dollars or anything like that. But I've also worked on, when I was at National Institutes of Health, I worked on magnetic stimulation of the brain, where you hold a coil near the head, pass a current pulse, and it induces currents in the brain that will stimulate them. That's been quite successful. I have worked on measuring magnetic fields of nerves and muscle. So the general theme is electricity and magnetism applied to biology and medicine.
That's so fascinating. Are you able to, have students that are interested in that thing kind of clung to you because of that?
I've had students come and work with me, both graduate students who have published their dissertations on that field, and undergraduates have also participated and published papers with me.
When you work with undergrads and graduate students, what's like the biggest difference you see between the two of them?
Well, the undergraduates is usually their first experience in research, so it takes a little more training at the start, but Oakland undergraduates are really good, and usually once they have a few months of experience under their belt, they can work at a pretty high level.
Being at OU for 20 years, you've been able to see a lot of different things happen here. What has been the thing that you are most proud to say, I work at OU about?
I've seen our research increase over the years and become more widespread, and I think that to see people here working on the biomedical research topics on cancer, on Alzheimer's, on arthritis, and to see these accomplishments has been really I've really enjoyed that, and I'm really impressed by it. So it's the quality of the overall research program at OU is really strong.
So what are some new areas of research you're looking into?
Well, recently I've become interested in biomechanics, how mechanical forces affect biological tissue, and in particular how they grow and respond in response to mechanical forces. So a lot of my research has moved from electricity and magnetism to mechanics over the last 5 years.
Especially with the technology boom we've seen in the last 10 years, does that play a role in maybe why you're kind of switching focus a little bit, or?
Well, I think it's mainly a new, fresh topic for me. It's something that I think I can contribute to, and something that is a little different. 20 years is a long time, and it's good to kind of change the research direction occasionally.
That's really interesting. Do you feel like at OU you've been able to really kind of get different experiences even though you've stayed at the same physical location?
Absolutely. In fact, there was one year about 6 or 7 years ago, I spent a year as interim vice provost for research, leading the research office. And that was a useful experience, although I eventually decided I prefer faculty over the administrative roles. But yeah, I've had a lot of opportunities to do different experiences like that.
Yeah, and without doing that, you probably would have never known that you prefer the faculty over being an administrator.
Probably not.
Yeah. If students are interested in your research, maybe interested in learning more about what you do, or even interested in just finding out how to be a part of research, how can they contact you?
Well, they can always email me, roth@oakland.edu. They can go to my website. Also, a part of being the director for the Center for Biomedical Research is I try to promote a lot of opportunities and accomplishments on the CBR Facebook and Twitter accounts, so they can find me on social media too.
So they can follow you, they can email you.
And they can listen to my tweets.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really interesting to talk to you about your time here and just all the different things you've researched and done.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
It's our pleasure. We'll be back with more Focus on Faculty after this. Now that that heart is all set, I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Focus on Faculty. I trust you learned something new and hope you had a little fun along the way. I'm your host, Xavier Hershevitz, and we'll see you next time.